Through enduring hardships, the tears of pain I shed today will be the tears of joy I shed tomorrow. I am Coach mjdtiger, certified life coach and mentor. Through passion and purpose, aiding those through the valleys, over the mountains, and conquering the volcanoes of life. While free, yet connected to everything, every place, and every person around us, we can obtain a life of freedom and wellness through passion and purpose. There is no end. You are here now. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Learn, laugh, and level up. How are you feeling? Take a moment to do a self-check-in for yourself. Do this every morning, throughout the day as needed, and every night before you close your eyes for sleep. Ask yourself, how are you feeling mentally? How are you feeling emotionally? How are you feeling physically? How are you feeling spiritually? And all, how do you feel in your mind? How do you feel in your body? How do you feel in your heart? And how do you feel in your soul? Balancing yourself is a healthy daily practice that will reliably keep you in harmony with your entire mind, body, heart, and soul. Take these next few moments of meditation in silence to answer those very questions. How are you feeling? Something to think about every day, every single day. Fear, mistrust in yourself, doubt, limited beliefs. These are things that you have to rid yourself of every single day. And it may have to be a reset button every single day. That reset button is trust. And that button is powered by self-love and self-respect you have for yourself. Everything that you fear, everything that you believe is holding you back, everything that you think is going wrong, there's always another way. There's always a different point. And sometimes we're going too fast. We got to slow down, sometimes even stop. The goal is just not to go backwards. It's to go forwards. We can only do that by trusting ourselves to know we can get over fear and obstacles, limited beliefs, and the stories we tell ourselves each day that we can't do it. Yes, we can. Yes, we will. Yes, we do. That is something to think about every single day, every single moment. You do, you can, you will. There is no should. There is no try. Just do it. Be patient with yourself, love yourself, be grateful for what you have, and forgive yourself, and keep moving forward. You are stronger than what you are giving yourself credit for. Trust yourself. You are. Episode 4. You are setting healthy boundaries. Setting these boundaries right off from the beginning is one of the cornerstone foundations of those core principles and morals and values that we create for ourselves when we're constructing our blueprint or reconstructing our blueprints of life. Because without boundaries, which oftentimes can be confused with limitations, and we'll talk about that more here soon. there are differences. With boundaries, we can either make these boundaries dangerous for ourselves and for others. We can make these boundaries safe for ourselves, but dangerous for others. We can make these boundaries dangerous for ourselves and safe for others. Or they could just be safe, or dangerous and dangerous. All of these things can be incorporated into every single boundary that we have. And each boundary is individual, just like in life. Each boundary is free from the other boundaries, but connected as well, because it's all connected to our core. But we have to reinforce these boundaries sometimes on an individual basis in order for them to have their complete total impact against whatever those boundaries were set up for to begin with. A healthy boundary should not be used as a means of manipulation, or a dangerous means of impacting others negatively. If you are setting a healthy boundary for yourself, it is not up to you. It's not your fault if someone else is interpreting that boundary as a negative. But if your healthy boundary for yourself is causing chaos in other people's lives and multiple people's lives, and you can see this and there are no changes or adjustments made, then that is an issue. Because we cannot go through life with healthy boundaries that are affecting other people negatively and be conscious and aware of this and do nothing about it. There are certain things about each of us that we have to deal with every day within ourselves that affects other people either positively or negatively or not at all. There are trends that we have within ourselves that we have to observe and identify and course correct. Get them into those blueprints and fix those corners that aren't so stable at the foundational points. If you are a person who finds yourself in certain situations all the time without any adjustment made, period, we can't blame other people and say those are the things that are happening to me because of them. You are the common denominator. You are walking and climbing your volcano alone. It's you. So if you find yourself being in disagreements with person after person after person, whether you know them or not, you're getting into a disagreement with this person, and then the next minute you're getting a disagreement with a family member, the next minute you're getting a disagreement with a loved one and that you're in a relationship with, and then you're getting a disagreement with your boss, and then you're getting a disagreement with your pet, and it's just you're finding yourself in all these disagreements all day long. There's something there at your core that is making those things happen, regardless if those people and those are having, despite what's going on in life, they're having these things happen. You don't know if they're bickering and fighting and arguing with other people. The only person you can account for is you. If we are failing at something over and over and over again, there's a boundary there that maybe needs to be checked. And those boundaries sometimes means, hey, there may be something in life right now that is distracting me from what I really need to do. And it could be a person, it could be a place, or it could be a thing. But it's distracting you from a boundary that is a weak point. And I look at those boundaries like fences. They're invisible fences, and we're going to get into the whole limitation thing. And I've talked about this before, of having these invisible walls that we create that we can't see, but we're just constantly walking into. Our boundaries help us. They're like warning signs, so we can safely walk up to those fences and go beyond them, so we're not limited. Again, those limitations. We don't want our boundaries limiting our potential. So if we have boundaries that serve as fences to keep us locked in and we can't get past them, or other people can't get in them safely without us being defensive and being wounded and being hurt and being making horrible decisions because we feel our boundaries have been attacked, we have to be confident in our boundaries that they can be attacked, but they won't be broken down. They can be defended reasonably and rationally. We do that through detachment. We can step back and say, where are they attacking this boundary? What are their intentions? I need to find out more. Now we enter communication. Effective communication helps with boundaries. People around you cannot recognize and respect your boundaries if you are not displaying a consistent, disciplined, well-founded boundary. A well-defined, reinforced boundary that is consistent. It's not a wavelength. It's not bipolar. It's not changing every hour. It's not changing every year. You're asking people to adjust to something that you haven't solidified for yourself. We talked about in the previous episodes about having yourself be clay for a short amount of time, molding yourself, but eventually, what the hell are you trying to make with the clay? And if you don't make something, then you have to create something, a blueprint to say, okay, I can't make anything. This thing's ugly. What can I make that is recognizable, that other people can use and know what they're using it for? And it's the same with our boundaries. We can't have people respect our boundaries if we haven't identified them ourselves. And it's our job to communicate, again, not only through words, but through action, what those boundaries are. And we have to be consistent about how we treat other people's boundaries. So we cannot enforce boundaries and neglect the boundaries of others. We cannot reinforce our individual boundaries and intentionally neglect the boundaries of those around us. That is a betrayal of trust in those people who are coming at you and respecting your boundaries as best they possibly can, but they need it in return. It is upon us as the common denominator in our lives to make sure that we're not being unreasonable with our boundaries. That's why we call them healthy boundaries, not unreasonable boundaries. Unrealistic expectations is a real thing in this world. We all have met someone who has expectations that not only the person that they expect to make these expectations, they can't reach them because they're unrealistic, but the person who is asking of these things aren't even attempting themselves to reach these expectations. This goes back to the boundaries thing. Boundaries are expectations. We expect people to respect our boundaries, and we expect people to not continuously keep attacking these boundaries to gain something on their end. And we feel that way because we shouldn't be doing that to these people. Do unto others as you will have others do unto you. So if there are things in our lives that we are troubled with when it comes to our boundaries, we have to step back, detach, and give ourselves patience and understanding, as well as other people. Give them patience and understanding to let them formulate some kind of a new plan to reinforce these boundaries in a healthy manner. Not every boundary is set in stone. As we grow, they will change. And there's a real thing about change and that rate of change. There's change and there's a rate. So some people change quickly. You know, if you talk about people who are bipolar, they can change on a dime. Their behaviors over time are harder to see change because they're changing so much. The overall broad spectrum of change is harder to identify because it's erratic. But those who are changing slowly and gradually over time, and I try to do this for myself. I try to slow down, especially following Tao. In Tao, we learn to slow down and make sure we are not overreacting and pursuing things too quickly. They were allowing things to unfold naturally and have its natural progression in a healthy way without affecting people in a negative way. And these things that we do, boundary wise, what are the intentions behind these boundaries? What are we gaining? And I'm being very general here because everyone's boundaries are different. I don't want to rattle off a bunch of examples that are pretty much primarily associated with me and maybe some people that I know that are close to me. A boundary for you is your boundary, and there's a wide spectrum of them. What we're talking about here is not so much the individual boundaries. It's, are those individual boundaries healthy? Are they unrealistic? And what do you expect others to do in regards to how they approach you and your boundaries? And how are you communicating your boundaries to other people effectively? And are you giving others enough time and opportunity, patience and understanding to adjust to your boundaries, especially if your boundaries are a little bit unrealistic or are changing rapidly? The rate of changing your boundaries are changing so fast, others cannot adjust to it. Or maybe you just don't have any boundaries at all. And you're so wide open, everyone is assuming you have boundaries and you don't have enough. It could be chinks in the armor, weak points, and Achilles' heel. These things are what destroys the foundations of boundaries as attached to the core of an individual at the morals, values, and principles level. The foundation, the legs that keeps everything standing up. We need some boundaries. We need some fences now around the structure. But we don't want to limit ourselves to just making boundaries for the sake of making a boundary and hoping it sticks. We want these boundaries to be a part of us, just like we would want discipline to be a part of us. Action. We're not talking about these boundaries. We're showing these boundaries because we're living them in a way where it's there in the forefront. Your boundaries aren't contradictory from your words, action-wise. We can talk a good game, but your boundaries are contradicting what you're saying. You're saying you're one way, but you're allowing all these things to either happen or not happen in regards to your boundaries. Or your boundaries are so unrealistic and out there that they're affecting other people negatively because they don't know how to approach your boundaries. So people become timid and shy and scared and fearful and full of anxiety to talk to a certain individual because they don't know how to approach someone with such defined boundaries. Control. That is a huge word when it comes to boundaries. Self-control. Control over ourselves is important. Self-control is a real thing. Self-control is something that keeps us grounded. It keeps us from making huge mistakes. It keeps us from making other people feel uncomfortable around us. But when it comes to those other people, we cannot take our self-control and then apply it to everyone else. We are disrespecting their boundaries. We cannot control other people. We cannot dictate and control other people's boundaries. That is our job to do for ourselves and ourselves alone. We can influence, we can motivate and inspire and teach, educate our children, family members, students, those around us who wish to learn from our wisdom and our experience. We can't control them. We can't control their experience. We can't control their actions or their words. We can only adapt to them. Again, influence, motivate, educate, and try to lead in a healthy way through our boundaries. So it's important, very important for each of us to understand the value in our boundaries, but respect more than anything the value in others' boundaries. If we don't respect other people's boundaries and we don't look at them and understand that they're going through things and they are struggling and maybe they're succeeding and they need help even though they're succeeding, and maybe they don't need help even though that they're failing. Communication. It's all about communication. If we fail to communicate, we fail ourselves as an individual with the boundaries that we're cultivating and growing for ourselves to begin with. Our boundaries are reinforced. They're growing as we grow. We add little pieces to each boundary. We have to respect that in others. And that's what makes boundaries healthy, in my opinion, in my personal opinion, We learn about our boundaries by watching others reinforce theirs. We learn about how to use our boundaries in a healthy way to guide ourselves through life and kind of have signs that say, hey, this is how I'm like, this is what I prefer, I won't put up with this, etc. We get that part, but are we reading the signs of others? If we are not reading the signs of others, if you see a stop sign, you read, you say out loud, you can say stop and blow through it. What was the fucking point of reading the sign, looking at the sign? What was the point if you're going to completely ignore it and with action do something that completely opposes what the sign was there in the first place? It's called respect. If we don't respect others, you cancel out the self-respect you should have for yourself. True empathy comes from respect of other people's experiences, whether we agree with them or not. Not everyone has to agree with every single thing that we do. That's not disrespect. That's just difference in opinion, difference in lifestyle, difference in attraction, difference in purpose, difference in motivation, difference in inspiration. We are ourselves. Our boundaries are ours to do what we wish, for better or for worse. But accountability and ownership are attached to each and every boundary for ourselves. And accountability and ownership are attached to every single boundary we ignore or respect in others. Our boundaries are only healthy when we are respecting the boundaries of others. We can be selfish and choose not to do that, but then that's not healthy. That's negative. That's disrespectful. It's a lack of empathy, and it's controlling. It's manipulating. You're using your healthy boundaries to ignore and distract yourselves from other people because you're putting your boundaries above others. That's not a healthy boundary. That's not how boundaries work. We can't use the best parts of ourselves to propel over other people who we believe, without even communicating with them fully, that they are below us in some way because we have something that they may not have at a certain point in time, or something we think they should have at a certain point in time. What we want out of life as individuals doesn't necessarily mean the rest of the world needs, wants, or even cares to have. Life will go on without us interfering in other people's lives. Their lives will either go on or end on their terms. We can interfere with it, we can distract it, we can throw a monkey wrench in it. Question is, are we making people's lives better? What impact are we having through our boundaries, our healthy boundaries? What impact, what good can we do with them? Not just bundle them up like a bunch of Christmas presents and go running in the corner and saying, mine, 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 mine. Life is about sharing. It's about every good thing that we get, we try to share a piece of it. That's what brings the world joy and peace. Not selfishness, not control, not manipulation, not what I want. What does that teach anyone? Boundaries that are built on selfishness will teach no one anything other than the exact same thing, and all you're doing is spreading selfishness. Boundaries make us a better person because those boundaries make us stronger, because we should be able to withstand things that come at us regardless of what they are. So what if someone doesn't agree with you? Your boundaries are reinforcing the fact that it doesn't matter. I can disagree with you and give you a hug after and a handshake and say, I like the fact that we don't have to agree on everything. We can move on confidently and learn from our disagreements. You don't learn from anybody who agrees with everything you say and believe in and wish for and want and desire. Life is about taking in all the different spices and flavors of every single person that you meet. That's the fun of communication, is that you get to learn something from a different point of view. That's the fun of having your unique boundaries, because you can look at someone else's boundaries, you can communicate with them, and you say, wow, I never thought about that type of a boundary. That's interesting. But if you're walking alongside people that are exactly like you, you're not learning anything. You're just walking around with clones of yourself. It's just the person on the left is a different gender and the person on the right is a different race. But all three of you are the exact same, because you're not growing, you're not communicating, you're not allowing other people to influence you positively, because your boundaries, although you believe they're healthy, are actually negative and toxic. Because you're ignoring the boundaries of those around you who aren't quite like you. Or you don't like their boundaries. You don't respect their boundaries, which is fine. But that's when we can detach and say, hey, listen, I just choose not to be with this person because they're affecting me negatively. But if those boundaries from those individuals aren't affecting you at all, what do you care? Worry about you. As they say, do you, boo. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Worry about what you're doing. We are setting healthy boundaries because those healthy boundaries will, in the end, because I believe life is about helping people, being there and sharing joy with other people, sharing your positive success and your stories and your experiences in a healthy way. And the healthier your boundaries are, whoever you're around, not through spoken words all the time, because again, it is about communication, but we can't contradict that communication. It has to also be there. So we can type a bunch of words and say a bunch of words, but if our actions aren't consistent and congruent for what we're saying, they mean nothing. And then those boundaries are then forever unhealthy, because there's tension, there's toxicity, they don't align. Remember, if we're not aligned with ourselves, how can we expect any of these other people to be aligned with us? Boundaries are no different. If we have no boundaries for ourselves that are healthy, how can we expect to interact with people with healthy boundaries? It won't work. We have to practice what we preach, and we have to put into action what we're communicating. We can't just keep saying. We can't inspire and teach and educate through false intentions and manipulation and love bombing people and showing people the way that we want them to be, and we're not doing it for ourselves. And the easiest way to do that is to focus on your boundaries and make sure your boundaries are together, that your core value principles and morals are all together, that your self-love is intact, that your alignment and your balance within yourself is intact. Because then after that, everything is simple. The work is easy. The joy will be there. And others can sense that. And you won't have to say a word. But when the time comes, you're able to communicate effectively because you have respect and empathy for the boundaries of other people around you that are not affecting you negatively. And that is what life is all about. Respecting other people, setting healthy boundaries for ourselves, so we can help interact with those who may need our expertise and education and want to talk to us about how our boundaries are, and we can listen. And even if their boundaries are different, we can take something in, because we all learn something from everyone around us. Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Learn, laugh, and level up. And if no one has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that.